everybody. Thanks for joining Intro Next Steps. So part of the way through your class, for every class that you do, this one and all of the ones that come after this one, we have a Next Steps meeting just to kind of help recenter ourselves and focus about, what's happening, where am I at within my program track, what's going to come up next, and that kind of a thing. Answer any questions because there might be some things that are a little bit different in future steps of your program track, since we're always trying to iterate and improve things with our program. So we will have next steps meetings every course you have with us, to be able to help get you ready for whatever is happening after whatever you're currently in finishes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. I'm going to go through a bunch of information, and then, of course, like I had said, drop your questions in the chat. I can address those as we're kind of rolling through, and we'll definitely have question and answer section at the end. Congratulations on being so close to finishing intro. We just started week 7, right? That's amazing stuff. You might be struggling with Git a little bit. That's totally normal. I think Teresa posted about that in the channel today. As you work with it more, it'll get more comfortable. I know it feels weird to do this strange workflow when it's just you and your code right now, but we're trying to help develop those good programmer habits because you won't always be the only one working on the base of code of something you're building. You'll be working with others. So this workflow of making sure that you're doing something on a separate branch helps make sure that the users impacted by any changes that are going on in the background are not negative impacts to users. But anyway, so congratulations. We're coming up on the home stretch. You're doing a great job. The agenda for what we're going to be covering in our meeting today is kind of helping guide you and give you information so you can choose your next class. Your choices are either React or Python Essentials. We're going to walk through how to register during this May 13th to May 26th window, just to make sure that you're not missing any deadlines and falling out of any pipelines. So that's kind of what we're going to be hitting today. All right. So to start with, you have a choice to make. You either have web development track or data engineering track. A lot of you might have already decided what you want to do coming into this, and you're still on that pathway and you know what you're doing, and that's totally fine. Some of you, like me, flounder back and forth between a number of things about, should I do this? Maybe I should do that. What about this other thing? And it takes you a while to kind of settle into what's the next step that I should do. And that's totally okay too. Intro is the fork in the road. It's pretty much the only time in your pathway that you have an option of what am I going to do next. Once you start on the web development track, then there's a sequence of courses that you take to be able to complete that track. Same thing with data engineering. So this is the primary spot where there's a fork in the road. You're not really going to see that after you move on to either React or Python Essentials. They do lead in different career directions. So web development with React is going to be building sites for users. Data engineering is going to be working with data that users then use, but it's a little bit more sort of research oriented and less design oriented. You pick one, not both, but that's not to say that you can't come around and do the second one after you've completed the first one. You just can't do them both simultaneously. We've had some chatter in the Slack channels about career pathways quiz leading up to this next steps meeting. I am going to share that link in the chat again too in a few minutes on a couple of slides forward from now. But first we're going to dig deeper into each of these, React and Python, to be able to see what those classes are all about. I am going to copy the link to the Airtable view that shows you all who your cohort leader is, who your assignment reviewer is, because I also have added in which track you selected when you applied for intro. So you can always take a look and say, okay, good, yeah, they have me down for the right one, or you can let me know, go ahead and switch me, and we can take care of that. Regardless of what it says on that form, make sure that you're registering for the class that you want for summer. So even if it still says data engineering and you know 100% you want to take React, register for React, regardless of what that form says. Okay, so let's take a look at these a little bit more in depth. So our first option, in no order of any particular consequence, just my mind goes to React before it goes to Python because that's the older class we've had with us. But for the React and web development track, you're going to be learning about things called components, state, building interactive user interfaces, things that users are seeing and clicking on and accessing when they visit a site. I am going to drop the learning objectives link in the chat as well too. So if you want to see more granular week to week, what are you going to be learning in React, then that'll show you those specific things. But in general, it's a framework. React is a framework that allows you to have pre-built items that you can then reuse in multiple places around your site. The best way I can describe that is right now you're working on your portfolio sites. If you haven't already, then you'll be building a message section where users fill in like their name and their email address and a message to you, and then there's a button for them to be able to send that, right? So buttons are a great example. They're components and bits and pieces within the React framework that help shortcut that. So all of your buttons on every page of your entire multi-page site would have consistent styling. It would have pre-built functionality. So you just have to specify what does that button do when the user clicks that button. So it's a really quick, easy way to be able to spin up a site because it has a lot of pre-built things, and it makes good use of your code in reusing it in multiple places throughout a larger site. So it's really pretty handy and helpful to learn. The career direction you'd be going at with web development and learning React is front end. For React specifically is the front end. That's the parts that users see and interact with. And then after React, you take Node, which then expands you into being a full stack web developer, because then you know how the user side goes and you know how the data that gets to the user side goes. Students who are going to do really well in the React pathway, web development pathway, are people who enjoy visual interactive work, building things that users directly use, thinking about what's going to be the most efficient and helpful way to be able to get a user what they need. After React, you would take a Node.js Express class that is server-side JavaScript to be able to help complete your full stack skills. So also later in this intro class, you're building out a portfolio site. You'll build an open API site where you're pulling data from some other source to be able to share with your users. So right now and in React, you would learn the front end part of building that out. When you get to the Node class, then you'll learn about the data part that gets passed to you in those API calls. So that's what's coming up in 2 terms from now. Okay, any questions particular to React that I can help with right now before we move on to talking about Python? Hopefully the learning objectives link in the chat will also be of use to you. And it's okay to look at the learning objectives and be like, whoa, I don't know any of these words. I don't understand any of these things. It's okay, because it's all going to be explained out to you. But at least it kind of gives you a visual of, what are we going to be working on? What should I be able to do by the end of that class? All right. So we'll go ahead and move on to Python Essentials, which is your other option. Python Essentials in the data engineering track is going to be teaching you Python fundamentals, working with data, working on problem solving. It is more data heavy because Python, and you're learning a lot. So in Python, and the class that comes after Python Essentials, it covers a lot of ground. Python is very versatile and used in a lot of different ways, including you can use aspects of it in web development, but most of it's used a little bit more with data work. So when you go to Python Essentials, the first 3 weeks is going to be pretty intensive learning Python syntax. So you know how to do a lot of things with JavaScript right now. Python will have the same functionality of those things, but written in a different way for the Python programming language. So you'll be jumping into a new programming language. So get your running shoes on. But it'll also be really exciting to do. And you'll have that connection of, okay, in JavaScript, we wrote a loop this way. A loop still behaves the same way in Python, but we write it using these words. The code has to look this way when we're doing a loop in Python. So that's one thing to just kind of prepare yourself in those first coming weeks, is that it'll be learning a new programming language, but the concepts are still the same as far as how data is worked with using that language. Career direction for these folks is data engineering, data focus roles like analytics, operations, research. So you'll be working more with bodies of data, cleaning and scrubbing that data. So pulling out duplicates, finding anomalies, making visualizations out of that data. So here's all of our research study from this particular medical research. Let's put it in graph form. Let's put it in pie chart form, that kind of a thing. So you'll be learning those in Python Essentials, data visualizations, data scraping, to be able to pull and clean data. Students who are going to thrive in Python Essentials and in the Python track in general are folks who are really enjoy logic, data, solving structured problems. Sorry, I hear an echo. Excuse me just a second. So if in this class you're really enjoying like working with the JavaScript part of the code, working with the APIs and parsing through the information that you get back from your API calls, then you might consider the data engineering path. If you're enjoying more of like making the portfolio look nice, visually organizing it and formatting in a way that would be helpful for the user to be able to see information about you, then you might like web development a little bit more. So hopefully that's a helpful kind of guide. Oh, sorry, hold on. Between those, and I want to put the learning objectives for the Python Essentials class in now in the chat as well too. So feel free to take a look at that information in case that's something that you'd like to see what you're going to be doing next class. Okay, so you know these two options now. How do you decide? As I had mentioned, sort of the areas in the intro class that you're interested in the most are going to kind of help with that as far as how to decide if you're on the fence and not really sure. You can definitely lean towards your strengths. That's always a good area to go in because then it makes it a little bit easier and more enjoyable to be able to learn things that you already have an aptitude for, that you already feel comfortable with. But it's also okay to push yourself outside of your comfort zone too, if you want to. So you'll want to consider, like, do I want to build things that people are seeing and using, or do I want to work behind the scenes with the data that gets passed to people that then see and use it on a web development kind of platform? You can also consider, like, what kind of work have you enjoyed more in intro so far, like I had mentioned, as far as like working with the APIs and parsing that data versus designing your site. So those are different things there. And what kind of job do you want to have in 1 to 2 years? Do you want something that is more web development focused? Do you want something that's more data analytics focused? Yeah, I think Marina had a question. Go ahead and unmute and ask your question, Marina.
Yes, Mary, I have a question. So as I know, for JavaScript path, we already have established program for apprenticeship. So that looks like you can find a job after this program. But for Python, I've heard that there is no established path with apprenticeship or some something like that.
Correct. Yeah. So right now, the only projects that we have that use Python on Code the Dream Labs side of our organization are internal projects. And the use of Python in them is still fairly early stages. So we don't have dedicated Python roles for the apprenticeship as of right now. Of course, it'll be taking you 3 more quarters to be able to completely finish the Python track. So things can change. And my understanding is Labs is looking for projects that we can take on to be able to build with Python. So it could be that by the end of your Python track, there are spots that are available for Python apprenticeship. Python also just in general would give you more outside of Code the Dream options potentially. Python's being used a lot with AI models. And because it does so many things using Python language, then there are more opportunities of different varieties available to folks who are more familiar with Python and using several of their libraries, using them in different ways and different capacities. So while you wouldn't necessarily have like a direct path to an apprenticeship right now through Python, if you are graduating out of Python practicum this term or next term, it doesn't mean that there won't be one there by the time you reach the end, and it doesn't mean that you don't have opportunities outside of Code the Dream. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a question in the chat too about if you're comfortable in front end, can you use data engineering path as learning back end? So the Node class that comes after React will actually be teaching you data work on the back end from JavaScript and in a web development capacity. Data engineering with Python is a little bit of a different animal. So if you aren't wanting to do things that are web-based, then Python would be the way to go. If you do want to do things that are web-based, then React and web development would probably be the better way to go. You can use Python with JavaScript front ends, but our program doesn't go into how to use that because the jobs that we're seeing out there for Python roles are using them in the way that we've structured our curriculum to be able to set you up to learn. So hopefully that helps answer Joey's question a little bit too. Okay, so there is a lot to consider. There's a lot to think about. It's okay to be unsure and to be like, I don't really know what I want to do quite yet. You have until the 26th to register, so you have some time over the next 2 weeks to, give it some thought and consider what might wind up being the best for you. I encourage you all, if you're in that sort of unsure place, to talk to instructors or mentors before registering, talk to your friends before doing that, to say, what kinds of things am I good at and what kinds of things do you see me getting the most joy from? It's totally okay to go that route and consider those things as you're working through which class you want to take next. As promised, I'm dropping the career track quiz in there as well too, in case you haven't seen that yet. Then that could potentially help you kind of decide which way to go as well too. Some of you might be like, what if I choose the wrong path? And that is terrifying. And I myself have visited that multiple times in my life about, oh, is the decision I'm making the right decision? And I don't think there's really such a thing as choosing the wrong path in this circumstance. So you have a 50-50 shot of getting it right since you only have two options to start with. That might help alleviate any anxiety there. And all of the skills are good to have no matter which path you're selecting. And we do have a number of students that have gone through web development because that was what we had available. And now they're working their way through the Python track because both of them are teaching you strong programmatic skills, logic, thinking, working with algorithms. A lot of it is things that will only make you stronger regardless of what job you land in the tech industry, because all of them are using skills that are vital to doing well within the umbrella of technology and looking at things analytically, figuring out ways to be able to improve things. So even if your choice doesn't feel right and you need to drop out, that's okay. You can reapply and start the other track post intro. So if at the end of intro you've successfully gotten onto React, you're halfway through React and you're like, oh, this is terrible, I should have done data, that's okay. You can drop out of React and then you can test out of intro to be able to get into the Python class. So things happen, we understand. Talk to us about what's going on. Know that you can reapply. Know that you can take the other track after you've completed the first one too. One thing to note with the Python track, we are hoping within the next, late this year, early next year, to have an intro to Python class that allows students more time to work with Python syntax before diving into some of the visualizations and scraping skills that we teach in Python Essentials right now. And if you decide that you want to switch tracks, and you can test out of an intro to Python class, if we have one available by that point, then there'll be a process to be able to do that if you want to. Or if you're like, no, I've never touched Python before, I want to go ahead and take that intro to Python class, then that will be something that's coming down late 2026, early 2027, hopefully, barring any catastrophes and hoping that all things go well. Okay, so we've talked about your options. Let's talk about registering for your options, because that's going to be pretty important to do. The registration window starts today, goes until the 26th. The registration form is the exact same one you did for getting into this intro class as well too. Feel free to review the videos if you want to, but having been through the class right now, you're probably pretty comfortable with how our program's structured, when your assignments are due, what mentor sessions are like, all of that kind of stuff. So you can also skip the videos or just hit parts that you're like, yeah, I didn't feel solid on what they were doing there. Let me rewatch the video. You do definitely need to do a new study plan because it's a new term. It's going to be over the summer. It'll be from July 1st until September 16th. So you might have different things going on in your life during summer and early fall. So you'll create a new study plan guide, the spreadsheet that allows you to select, like, this is when I'm working on Code the Dream, this is when I'm doing other things. So you'll create a new one of those and submit it with your registration. But otherwise, the registration form should be pretty similar and familiar to you already. The other reason we have you register for every single class that you do, even though you might know your track and so it's predetermined what classes you'll be taking, is you might want to change your emergency contacts. Maybe you've changed your pronouns, you've moved to a different address, your phone number is updated. So it's just an opportunity for us to make sure that we have the most current information for you. Okay, so yeah, registration opens today, closes May 26th. Sorry, hold on, I need to move my notes here. If you do not register during this window, you will not be placed in a summer class, even if you pass everything for intro. If you have not registered by the 26th, you are not taking a summer class. So no exceptions, no late registration. That's your warning. Be sure that you get your registration in by the 26th. All right, moving on to our next for how to register. So you'll have two different links depending on which course you want to register for, and it'll default your class into the form. I am going to go ahead and open these and paste them into the chat, so that way if you are one of those students that's like, I already know I am 100% going to Python Essentials, then use that one. If you are 100% I'm going to React, then you will use this one. Okay, and while I have it up, then we'll go ahead and take a look at what these registration forms look like. As you see, it's same as before. You can access the video playlist for registration if you need to right there. Select your name, fill out all of the details. Whichever class should already be pre-filled if you've clicked the right link for the class you want to take. Before you submit your registration, please double check that you have the name correct and that you have the class correct before you submit. So that way we know everything is good to go. From there, it's the same kind of knowledge check as far as adding in your study plan, making sure you know where to find things and how the program runs, emergency contacts, availability for sessions, address information, all of those kinds of things. So all of the rest of that is identical. Okay, so complete the registration form, do the study plan. I do have a link, if you give me 1 second for me to be able to dig it out of my windows here. And I will share the link for the study plan form in case you want to have that handy as well too. And I'll put it up in the Slack announcements channel also. Let me find the right one. And it should be over here in this file. And our study plan should be, sorry, bear with me. I'm on the one screen and my windows are all kinds of squishy. And everything's overlapping. Okay. Sorry, my Zoom window is blocking my view of what I need. Here we go. Okay, link to the study plan. Okay, dropping that in the chat now too. I think we did switch it so it's drop downs now, so it should be a little bit easier to sort of manipulate your study plan as well too, hopefully. Okay, so yeah, complete registration form, double check that you have the right class and your name is on there properly, and submit your form, and then you're done other than completing the class. Any questions about the registration form or about the study plan before I move on? Okie dokie. And the recording of this and all the helpful links I've been dropping in the chat will also be shared on your Slack announcements channel this afternoon as well too. Okay, but registering isn't the only way to get in the class, because intro is a prerequisite for both React and Python Essentials, unless you have managed to test out of it during the initial application process. So you do have to complete intro successfully. So the registration is only securing your spot if you also meet all of your intro class requirements. So what do you need to do to successfully complete intro? All of your assignments should be completed and turned in. Most or all of them should be passing. Final projects need to be completed and passing, and those need to be in on time. Complete both of 2 technical assessments that we'll be sending out to you during the final week of class. You will have the final week of class and the week following the final week of class to be able to complete that. I'll be sharing details about that in the Slack channel as well too. But so you'll have a 2-week period that overlaps your last week of class and extends a week beyond the end of class for you to be able to take 2 technical assessments. You probably just heard assessments and started freaking out if you're like me. It's okay. The assessment scores do not impact whether or not you move on. Technical assessments are very commonplace in the tech industry, so that's why we want you exposed to these. So you will need to take them during that 2-week window. They are required to be completed during that time period, but what the score is that you get on it does not matter. So it's okay if you get it and get a 20%. It's okay if you take it and get a 90%. The important thing is that you've taken it to be able to see what it looks like, so you'll be comfortable with it when the ones that do matter turn up during interviews in several quarters from now when you're applying for jobs or when you're applying for the apprenticeship. So that's the story about that. To reiterate, keep showing up, finish your work through the end of the term. If you have questions about any of it, reach out to people so that way you know and are clear on what the expectations are. Okay, let's get a visual on this just to really drive home the importance of these deadlines. So your first deadline is by May 26th. Make sure your registration form is complete and submitted. If we don't have your registration, you don't take a summer class. And then the second deadline is June 16th for your assignments and final projects to be turned in, and June 23rd for both of those assessments I just talked about to be turned in. If you're missing any of these things, if you miss any of these deadline dates, then summer class will not be happening to you, and we will have to have a different conversation. Any questions about the deadlines now that you're seeing them in a little bit more visually friendly format? All right. So you are not in this alone. You do have resources and support available to you. If you're having trouble deciding between React and Python, do all of those things we talked about earlier. Talk to friends, talk to classmates, talk to mentors, reviewers, cohort leaders, take the quiz that we shared, anything like that to kind of help you determine your way. And don't panic if you are unsure about your decision. See your decision through. Because it might be just what you needed. And if it's not, then you can either drop out, reapply to come through the other program, or you can see it through to the end and take the other program at the end. So you have options. If you have questions about registration, if anything's not behaving right, you go into the registration form, you can't find your name, you go into the registration form, it deletes out the class and you're not sure which class to select. If there's anything that's not behaving as you expect it to, then just let me know. If you need help finishing your assignments, so that way you are getting everything turned in by that June 16th deadline, remember that we have one-on-one mentors here that can help you. Reach out to them. If schedulings don't align, talk to your cohort leaders or use the discussion channel to be able to reach out to others and get some help in the time frame that you need it. And if you have questions in general, then my door is open. Just be sure to reach out before the last day of registration so that I don't have, 100 of the 400 of you that we have in classes right now, reaching out all at the same time to my one individual person trying to get back to you all on the same day. All right. This has been a lot of information and you probably have a lot to think about. If you have questions that I can be of help with right now, feel free to share them in the chat or unmute and ask. Otherwise, that kind of concludes our information part.
Thank you so much, Mary, for your time and for presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being on the call. If you think of things after, you know how to reach your cohort leaders, you know how to reach me. So feel free to reach out if you have questions come to mind after the fact. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, thanks.
I have one question. When the summer classes start?
Summer classes will start week 1 on July 1. We'll have, just like we had in the intro class, week 0 will be the week before, so June 24th, where it'll just be no technical stuff and just getting yourself acquainted with where to find all of your class supplies and all of
Means
that.
as soon as the spring class finish, the summer class will start.
Yep. Yeah, there is not a lot of breathing room between these quarters. Yep.
Yeah, that's why as a mom, I'm like, okay, I want 1 week break.
Exactly. Yep.
No worries. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks. Yeah, Rupa, thank you for asking the question about Python Essentials. You do use some SQL in Python Essentials, but I think they also have other ways to be able to, I think they use Python as some of the querying. I'm not 100% sure on the details, but I know you do use a little bit of SQL and you definitely are using Python and Python Essentials. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Yes, I would love to go back to the one with the dates. Here you are.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Susie, there wasn't anything that you felt I left out, right? Okay, I see a quiet chat and I am not hearing any other questions come through on audio, so I'll go ahead and end our call. I will share this recording, the links for the registration documents. I'll update your class info tab, so the links for the registration forms are there as well too. You'll have access to the study plan template. You'll have access to the learning objectives documents that I shared for the React and the Python Essentials classes. And of course, you have all of us human resources available to you, so reach out for anything that you need. All right, thank you all so much and have a great rest of your week.